This episode of Bonfireside Chat is brought to you by Latchkey Kingdom, which is a webcomic by Nick Daniel. Head on over to latchkeykingdom.com to check it out. It kind of shows the journey of Willa Dragonfly, who is a lady adventurer who goes out exploring dungeons, fighting monsters in this kind of light fantasy world, meeting lots of interesting characters, kind of getting into trouble. And it's really, really good. Me and Cole both really like it. There is a Dark Souls kind of crossover that is going on called Latchkey Souls. I recommend checking that out. And that web address again is www.latchkeykingdom.com.
Some of our landings were desperate adventures. We are now prepared to meet the inevitable counterattacks with power and with confidence.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Kole Ross.
And you're listening to Bonfireside Chat. It is a hopeful favorite. It is a withered favorite.
It is a real up-and-comer.
It's a real up-and-comer.
Yeah, ham and egger, right?
Scrappy. Yeah, we're learning all of the new watchwords.
Yeah.
And everything for this new game, which we're starting now, season 4, for Dark Souls 2.
Yeah. It's here. Gary's beaten it.
Yeah, I beat it about a half hour ago.
So this isn't so much first impressions as it is, hey guys, what up? This is who the final boss is.
Yeah, welcome.
Hermione dies.
I was trying to console my girlfriend who has been a bit of a Souls widow this week.
Yeah.
And the way I explained it was like she reviews movies for a website called Bright Wall Dark Room. And I was like, well, it would be like if you had an assignment for that and they sent out like a stack of Oscar screeners like up to your waist. Yeah. Like here's every short documentary from every language, and you have to get through this. You can plan your time. So I just really wanted to get through it so we could look and see what the season was going to look like. And
yeah. I agree. I was less successful than you. I'm fairly concerned that if this goes on much longer, my neighbors will what's it called, a welfare check.
Oh, send the cops. Yeah. Do a knock and talk.
Yeah. Just see how it's going.
Yeah. Yeah. There are several like audible swears happening as well. Yeah. Which is my professional marijuana user neighbors. I have not heard it over the Bob Marley records and posters of Jim Belushi with college on his shirt.
Yeah.
So
weed lords in training.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're good guys.
I've got concrete walls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had to scream through them.
Yeah.
So let's we're going to talk about first impressions and then I think outline. This would be a good time to hammer down some of our spoiler policy stuff.
Yes.
That we're going to have and give you an overview of what the season's going to look like. Is kind of our goal for this one. So if you're expecting us to really get into the meat like we do, we're not doing that, but there's also not a 2-week wait. Next Sunday we are doing the tutorial and Medulla in our traditional do the hub world with just me and Cole.
Medulla, you mean Marjula?
Marjula. Yeah. So we were talking about it off mic. Yeah. It's fantasy name syndrome. Where it's like I'm just being exposed to it, a couple dozen extra names to try to memorize. And there are more of them in this game. So I'm going to probably fuck that up. I was even doing it with stats. I was talking to people and I was like, vigor, vitality, like it's going to take me a little while to get used to that stuff. I can describe all of it, but the name of it is hard for me to get used to.
Yeah.
So Medulla is what I mean. Medulla.
Tasty. Watch some horses. Run in a circle, kill some necromancers on the side. It's all good. Yeah,
it's all good. It's a good old time.
Yeah.
So next episode will be the first real one covering Dark Souls 2. This is just a teaser. First impressions, Cole. Shoot.
God.
Sat down on Tuesday.
I could sat down. Well, first off, I went to a midnight launch, even though I swore I never would. And I met some pretty cool dudes. It was kind of amazing because you think, okay, it's going to be launching alongside Titanfall. There's going to be a bunch of dude bros and you're going to have to deal with that. But no, like at the store, which is my old GameStop, which conveniently is a 1-minute drive from my current home. Like mostly there for Dark Souls.
Yeah.
Which is like cool and hopeful.
It is cool and hopeful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like this game's getting a lot of attention and buzz. It's good for
And
No.
I was talking with the person in front of me in line and the person behind me in line, and yeah, it was like a bunch of cool dudes who like know about soul stuff. I think one of them might even be listening because I was a douche and I dropped the fact that I do a podcast. But it's,
I think you almost have to, like in that situation. Like it'd be weird if you didn't.
yeah.
Like,
Well, we were talking about plans, and I said, oh, I'm going to be kind of a no show at work, so for the week because I've really got to get it beaten like by Sunday. I failed at that. Who knows what tonight brings? But I was saying like, wow, I've got this podcast kind of thing, and so I'm rambling, but it was a good atmosphere, and there was a lot of cool Souls talk.
I'm surprised that one of the Titanfall guys didn't come up and like point to an imaginary spot on your shirt and then zip his finger up, hit you in the nose, or knock your game out of your hands. And
It's just ogre.
yeah,
Nerds!
together.
Yeah.
Nerds. I went to Smash Fight this year. They had that again, and there were these nerds that were kind of shadowing us. And I swear to God, they were just farting everywhere they went. Like everywhere they went, it smelled like fart. And I was just like, everywhere I kept looking at Elizabeth and I was like, man, everywhere we go, like, you see people just crop dusting left and right.
Yeah.
Is it those nerds? And every time we saw them, like there's this trio of nerds that just kept spraying and praying like ridiculous.
It was a gastrointestinal pig pen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just have this aura.
Is a nert like some kind of terrier? Like I'm not quite sure.
No, I just like saying it that way.
Okay.
Nerds.
Yeah.
Fucking nerds.
Yeah, man. I went to speaking of putt golf. There's an indoor place called Glow Golf in a mall in Florence, Kentucky. Went there with my niece and my brother here last weekend, and I thought it was going to be kind of cool. It's like, oh, I had no idea, and I thought, oh, fun. It's obviously a money laundering front. So, like, no, just 3 times around on the 18 holes. And it's like, oh, you just want people to be in here for a long time so the cops don't get suspicious.
Yeah.
Okay. But the collector's edition, real cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Did you see my unboxing tweets?
Yeah, that was funny. I did see that. Yeah. It was good. Yeah. I don't really have a good space for that warrior. I've got to find a good spot for him. But and I also had so one, since we do this podcast, having the original soundtrack like on disc, that's great.
Yeah.
But two, the art book, I was like, I don't actually want to look at this yet. Like I'm just like, I'll just put this aside but luckily the map is totally useless.
Right.
So it's useless like a Fallout 1 map. Like it is so garbagey. Like you cannot orient yourself by it at all.
Yeah. I've got it affixed to my closet door behind my computer desk. So
yeah, it's pretty, but it doesn't help at all.
Yeah.
I did not go to a midnight launch. I just Amazoned it.
Yeah.
And just had it that way, and then I've just kind of been like playing it long enough that like I'm physically worse for wear. Like my bones are ached. Like
yeah, I feel atrophied. Is what it is. And I since Tuesday, I've put probably 1 and let's say 1/5 work week into this. Mm-hmm. And even at work, like I stand up, I walk around. There's a lot of nervous pacing. There's a lot of fretting and let's just say anxious. Yeah. There's a lot of raging against the dying of the video. So like those 40 something hours that I have in there right now. That all represents like ass time, is what that is. That is 40 something hours of ass time, which just makes me like I'm happy it's spring because like I'm gonna throw the fuck out of some footballs after I get this done. maybe beat down some nerds. I don't know. Yeah,
fucking nerds. I definitely have played for a long period standing. Like just in front of my TV, like anybody who walked in would think they walked in on a J-horror movie.
Standing transfixed.
Yeah, just standing transfixed.
Like some kind of like black liquid dribbling out of the corner of your mouth.
My eye,
yeah. Eyes milky.
Yeah.
Yeah. I rearranged every room in my house in order to do something with my body.
Yeah. It's really been taxing. Yeah. But yeah, first impressions after launch, like you sat down and played it. What's without going into what we're going to talk about next episode, like some generalities. Anything? What you get?
aesthetically, oh my gosh, the colors, Gary, the
Yeah.
colors, like
the thing I think I sent you to in text, but like it's not afraid to be pretty.
right. No,
You know, like the first one is very bleak. Like there are some kind of beautiful areas, but there are a lot more beautiful areas, and not just beautiful like Firelink style. Like there are beautiful areas that are explicitly a threat, but are just gorgeous.
yeah, like when you first there's like this Bethesda-esque reveal as you walk from Things Betwixt into Merjula, that like it like I kind of like I had to remind myself to breathe for a second. I know that sounds like super goony or whatever, but like it's I don't know.
It's real pretty.
Yeah,
and
it pushes a bunch of the Kole buttons, which are like, you know, coastal rocky areas surrounded by ruins at twilight. Yeah, like give me a painting of that.
Yep. Yeah, and it just looks so. I don't know. It does. It looks very good, and a lot of that, and this has been talked about by other people, but it's true. Is the lighting?
Oh yeah.
Stuff, the lighting effects and in the graphics, and especially once you start running into torches and needing to use them, like everything just looks great.
Yeah.
So that was a huge thing. It just feels different. We're going to articulate that a little bit more in the next episode. It feels a little different, and it took me some time to get used to. Once I got used to it, it feels really natural now.
Yeah.
But there's lots of little changes in how the game feels.
Okay, so this is a poor choice of words because I don't know if I entirely believe it. It feels a little bit more loosey-goosey in that it is quicker.
Well, that reminded me of Demon Souls in that respect. I wasn't sure if it was just because I was playing it on PS3.
Have you played Dark Souls on a PlayStation 3? Because it feels very similar, like the way that it, like the way that the display technology represents it, or the controller, like just like the difference in the controller dead zones. I think that there's just like a bunch, maybe like 4 degrees off factors that are contributing to that.
Yeah, it's definitely a different feel. So it was a huge thing. One of the things that we're going to talk about probably at length during the season is this game is huge. Like it is easily, I feel like it is easily twice as big as Dark Souls.
Yeah.
Like it is just huge. I mean, and some of that's going to be compression of space. You know, as we get through, I had reason to go back through the first real area, and I had a much more powerful character, but also I knew where everything was, and I cleared it really fast. So that's still at play.
Yeah.
But there are just more areas, double the number of bosses.
Yeah.
In the game, like it's just a bigger experience, and that was one of the things we kept texting back and forth, kind of marveling to each other. It was like just like this just keeps going. Like every time I duck behind a wall, there's a whole new spoke of this world. Yeah,
that spokiness, speaks to like a huge difference in the structure. When we say it's bigger, like maybe like 5 Lordrans would fit into this, because Lordran is a column, right? It's folded over on itself like a protein that people leave their computers on to unfold. And this one, it is hub and spoke, like all leading from this particular place. So it sprawls. Oh my God, Gary, does it sprawl?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and it like again, once I get a little bit more into it, I'll see if how much of that is real and how much of it is just that first, like everything seems bigger because it's taking me forever. I'm sure the point that it's somewhere in between, but it is sprawling, and the places are further away from each other, and there are design decisions that support that. So part of the reason why it feels so big is because you don't have to walk everywhere.
Yeah.
Like once you get like the whole thing, and this is all going to go into detail next episode, but like some of the changes, even the ones I was initially a little lukewarm on, I've come around on in a big way. Because if you think about the fundamental changes, like being able to, so you can warp from bonfire to bonfire from the start, and you can warp from every bonfire, not just specific ones. That sounds like it is an ease of use change, but it just changes the focus.
Yeah.
So like once you get through an area, it is true that you never have to go through it again. Like if I get to the second bonfire, that's the only time. But it changes the focus to be less about endurance and more about carefully designed and specifically brutal encounters. So getting from one bonfire to the next bonfire is the challenge, not, can I kind of be atrophied or kind of wore down over a longer period of time. So it's kind of a more discrete unit, like a quicker, more brutal gameplay nugget.
Yeah.
As opposed to a kind of a longer wearing down.
Brutal was exactly the word that I was going to use. And even though there are probably by a factor of 10 more bonfires in this game, the specialness of seeing one I would say it's even heightened.
Yeah.
You
yeah,
know,
because it's so, and things are so hard. Like that's,
Yeah.
I mean, the game is very hard.
It's so hard.
Like it is very hard.
And all of these, the size issue and the difficulty, like those are going to, be worn off over time, and we're going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I had, a hard time on spoiler boss blank. And
Right.
like, oh, it's so easy. You just roll and he does this, dummy. And like, oh, I can't believe this felt so big. Like all of us right now are experiencing it the same way in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought like that has to be considered separate and distinct from like what the game actually is. Right.
Right. Like there's nothing like the first time.
Right.
And that is a thing that I've encountered with each of the Souls game, but not to this degree.
Right.
Like I feel like this game, part of the decisions I made were designed for fans of the series.
Mm-hmm.
And this comes down to like not just the lore stuff, but like, enemies, like the whole, once we start getting into the lore, and I don't have like a grand unifying theory on it by any means,
Mm-hmm.
but this game is very much a sequel in the truest sense of the word, in that everything is enhanced by knowing the first game.
Right.
So as opposed, and there's story things and gameplay things, like it's not, this doesn't take place like immediately, like the bonfire's kindled, let's build a city now.
Yeah.
But
It's like ActRaiser.
Yeah, exactly. But the fact that like having the kind of intimacy that I do have with Dark Souls 1 makes it so much more rewarding. And that's very much on purpose, and kind of supports that, including that bonfire thing. Like, I feel like even that decision is made to be like, okay, you think Dark Souls, like you think that you had that kind of first Dark Souls experience. Well, here it is, here's what we can change to make that totally fresh and new. Yeah.
You know what it feels like, and this is comparing a remake to a sequel, and you know exactly what I'm going to say with that preamble, but it feels like how the remake of Resident Evil 1 is so much better if you are intimately familiar with the PlayStation 1 version.
Yeah.
A little bit. Like, just like when you see something that breaks from it, it's that much more intensified because it plays with your suppositions, or with your prejudices about whatever you're going to see.
It's kind of meta in that respect. Like it's kind of like entering into the real world, or entering outside of itself.
Yeah.
So speaking of, when you talked about not going to mention boss name spoiler, let's clarify our spoiler policy.
Yes.
So my thought, this game, and having been through it, it does not have like a grand, and Dark Souls 1 didn't really have a twist to it either. But I feel like this is a little bit more explicit in where you're going and what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So stuff that, the Emerald Herald says to you obviously is fine. We're not going to be able to get through without talking about boss names.
Right.
We're not going to be able to get through without talking about NPCs that connect. So my kind of thought for it is that since, and so much of what we're going to come up with is going to be supposition at this point. Mm-hmm. Like even considering it a spoiler is kind of hard to do because there's no basis in fact. So like if we're in area 2 of the game, we're not going to talk about area necessarily, like say what happens in area 15 unless it's directly connected. Like, and if we do, we'll say like, oh, this is going to come up later, but we probably, we can say what happens in the next area because we'll bleed in. Mm-hmm. Like it'll be a little bit loosey-goosey.
Yeah. Something else that's playing into this is the fact that it's open from the start. It's not like, it's not like, okay, I can get to the Undead Burg, but, it's probably unwise to go into, New Londo, even though you can get there. Like, it's pretty much, you really only have like one place to go. And so like, I would say the game is probably divided into 2, much like in Dark Souls 1 where there is an Orlando and then everything after that is opened up. I think it's just going to be much more loosey-goosey in that first part, and then after it opens up, which is a point that I haven't got to, but there's a lot of mystery and anticipation around that.
Yeah.
Like after you have done what the Emerald Herald tells you to do, which is, you got to get that money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That might be the divider that we might want to put up for somebody who's like, I'm maybe a little bit sheepish, but
the thing about that though, and this is is that point that she's trying to get you to get to, which I'm going to say a location name, and it's not a spoiler because it's all in all the promotional materials and stuff, which is getting to Drenglake Castle. Mm-hmm. When you get to Drenglake Castle, you can end the game after that. So really? It's not like Anor Londo. There's a lot of stuff you shouldn't do that. That's you can do it at that point.
Huh.
So you're collecting. It's kind of like it's almost like starting out in the second half of Dark Souls 1, where it's like you're collecting the 4 Lord Souls. You can collect them in any order you want, more or less, but you just have to get them all.
Right.
And so you can. I didn't realize it. I thought that I had to keep going because I just didn't see something that was right in front of my face. But that thing that was right in front of my face was. So it's not strictly true. Like you can end it right there, but you can almost end it right there. Mm-hmm. You can go. There's one like a little area that you do, and then you can go back and finish it if you want. Mm-hmm. So it's not bisected.
Okay.
By any means. That's probably the last third of the game.
Okay.
Is Drangleic Castle. So, in either case, like we'll kind of call it as we get to examples, but if you're totally looking for a completely unspoiled experience, the show's probably, you should, play ahead.
Yeah.
Is going to be the safest bet. But this, I don't think it feels necessarily the same because this is like with the whole community kind of doing the same thing. Like I think the people who want to have all of the experiences fresh are going to just kind of keep, they're going to outpace us anyway.
Yeah.
And the people who are going to be interested in what we have to say are going to want us to make these connections and stuff. Mm-hmm. And just hearing the name of a place that comes later is not necessarily that big a deal.
Oh, you mean you don't want to hear about Mount He Dies at the end?
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to hear about Gwyn's tomb, or Nita, the daughter of Nito's. Yeah. Final resting.
Oh, the
cemetery.
Husk of the Old One. That was a crazy dungeon, Gary.
Yeah. And then the Yellow King's Fortress of Souls. Yeah.
Man, like when you actually go to Xanthus. Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Like all those crazy hats.
It's just an entire city based on crazy hats.
Yeah, like that Star Trek.
Yeah, like everybody's got a different one. Like, they got Foam Dome. There are some crazy hats. I've seen some Phantoms with some nutty hats that I've not been able to find. I've been super excited to see. But so we're going to talk about that. And also, needless to say, because this is so informed by Dark Souls 1, is that everything in Dark Souls 1 is up for grabs too. Yeah. So if we say this is like the final boss of Dark Souls 1, we're going to talk about how it is. So don't start here. I don't think anyone will, but that just to get that out of the way.
Just as a statement of policy, we can't assume anything. There are going to be new people, coming to join us. Yeah.
So that's kind of how we're going to do. So enter at your own risk. But I'm really excited to start, and we've got it kind of broken down by areas. It looks like we have about 17 episodes with appendixes each, and this does not count any kind of specials or anything because it would probably be interesting to get Jeremy back on and say like, how is PvP different?
Yeah.
In Dark Souls 2. Like we probably will have some special episodes. So maybe look at about 20, if I had to guess, total for, and it'll take up the better part of the year.
Yeah.
So.
Man, Gary, I'm so tired of sitting down in a chair and playing this. I love the game. Like it's so good. It is, I've had friends like texting me and asking like, hey, what do you think? And it's kind of like, it keeps giving. It really does keep giving. And
I was gonna say it earlier. I just that sound, the new title card sound that pops up is like hitting a Pavlovian trigger with me in a way that it never has before. Like every time it comes up, like, oh, here is a new cool place to explore. Like, where is this going to lead? What is this going to do? What boss is going to be at the end? And just that sound just feels so good.
Yeah,
so good.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you guys were wondering what we think, at least I, for as much as I complain about sitting in one spot, like it's super great. I feel like it is, I don't even know.
Yeah, it's exceeding my expectations so far. It's totally possible that once I know more about the lore, maybe it will not be as deep or something like that, or it might end up having the thing where like Dark Souls 1 is a little bit more compact and this is a little too sprawling to be as perfect. But it is, so far I'm really enamored with it. And there are moments in it that I'm having a hard time, finding their equal in earlier games in the series.
Yeah. It feels much more thoroughly baked to me. It kind of feels like they had, and again, there could be a Lost Izalith or an Ash Lake in there. It kind of feels like they have have had every opportunity to fulfill their ambition. So far.
Yeah, there's not.
Okay.
Like there are areas that are very small, but they're not. Nothing feels shittily done. like nothing at all. And the end game, which like in Dark Souls 1, like you do end up doing, like the end is just kind of like the kiln, which I really like ultimately, but ends up being kind of a non-gameplay area. Like there's not really the thing here. Right. Like the whole thing just kind of is fully developed and challenging and, yeah. So, no lost Izaliths to be seen. No dragon gods. Like all of the bosses not all of them are like one of the things, and we'll talk about it in generalities, but like because there are so many more bosses, I feel like fewer of them have as solid a concept.
Right.
As in Dark Souls 1. Like I feel like in Dark Souls 1, every boss is kind of trying to teach you something. Here, there are more of them that are just tough, fair fights.
Yeah.
But all of them are interesting from a set piece kind of lore design perspective. Like I haven't been bored by one.
Right.
Which is really cool. So, yeah.
I really need to get back to playing this.
Yeah. I'm probably going to play it some more. Like I'm going to take a break. But I'm probably gonna, cause I want to start that second playthrough and just like, okay, how do I talk to every PC and complete all of their quests? How do I do all of that stuff? Cause I didn't touch a spell during my first playthrough. Yeah. So I want to mess around with magic and everything. So I'm probably gonna try, and then we're gonna talk about this next episode too, but I just found out like New Game Plus is totally different. Like it's not a different area, but there are different monsters and the boss fights are different. And like which is exactly what I didn't like about New Game Plus in Dark Souls 1.
Right. So it's more like Master Quest.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like, every enemy has twice as much HP. Like, I read like a thing about one of the later bosses, and the twist that they do on it when you are in New Game Plus is really cool. And like this might be the first Dark Souls where I go through New Game Plus. I had a hard time getting to the tutorial when I started, just like picked it up and started going there. They add enemies into it that are very tough, and I died several times on my way to get to the tutorial in New Game Plus. So pretty ridiculous.
That's pretty funny.
But yeah. So see, this is a short episode, but see you next week. Where we're going to like I said, we're going to talk about things betwixt and Majula, the kind of tutorial and hub world.
Yep.
Areas. Joined by no one.
Man.
Yeah. Oh, and Kole, I hope you spend some time with the gestures.
Oh, yes.
Because if anything, this game would justify its existence for the get pumped, the pumped up gesture. It's so good.
It's like you're getting ready to throw some dice.
Yeah, you're like rallying up a tavern. Like, come on.
Yeah, it looks like your what's his name from the Warriors.
Yeah. All the gestures are great.
I do Warcry a lot.
Warcry is really good.
Yep.
I do that when somebody has helped me with a boss. And then the no you didn't. Or no you don't. Like nuh-uh. Like they're kind of like they're funnier than in Dark Souls 1. Like there are weird ways in which this game has more humor to it as well. Like it's just it's very rich. So looking forward to thoroughly unpacking that until I no longer want to talk about it.
I love how inscrutable the red soapstone messages are. Because I know that they're doing them like Mad Lib style, but it comes across like Doge speak a little bit.
Yeah, they're really great. Like wow, two bosses, therefore run, therefore magic.
It's like wow, such visions of ring ahead, therefore two bosses.
Yeah. Those are super fun. So. Once again, this episode of Bonfireside Chat is brought to you by Latchkey Kingdom, a webcomic by Nick Daniel. Head on over to www.latchkeykingdom.com to check it out, specifically his Latchkey Souls series, which you can navigate to from the site.
Cool.
All right.
So, quick admin stuff? Do you want to say that?
Yeah.
Just kind of things that are pertinent?
One thing, just as a general thing, like with this new time in the Souls community, like now is the best time if you are going to support the show as far as letting people know about it or reviewing and rating on iTunes, talking about it on social media. Like, as everyone is playing Dark Souls 2, we would love to be the name on everyone's lips.
Yep. So as you are telling your friends and your buddies and they're getting up to speed and, like if you have an opportunity to insert us into a conversation, possibly to its detriment, we encourage you to do that.
Yeah. Any conversation, really.
Yeah.
Job interviews.
Yep.
Exit interviews.
Court appearances.
Yeah, court appearances.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hearings, any kind of hearing.
If we could get into like some kind of docket.
Yeah.
Okay, send us a scan.
Well, I know what these words mean, but I don't know what they mean together. It is highly unusual, Mr. Hutz.
Oh, don't worry, I haven't slept for days.
Yeah. So please, spread the word. Like that is the biggest thing. This is the best time in the history of the show to help us, and the time in which you have the most power to do so.
Yeah. Same thing with iTunes reviews. I know that not everybody is of the iTunes persuasion, and we say it a lot. However, that actually does keep us in the what's hot section, which gets more people to see us. Over the past couple of weeks, we've had a lot of people reaching out saying like, "Hey, I was doing a search for like Dark Souls stuff, and we found you just like at random." That's called organic search traffic, Gary. And it's happening, and that is helped by us getting up in those ratings on iTunes. So Indeed. that is a very solid way to get us in front of more people.
Yep, and we'd really appreciate it because this is, like I said, this is an opportunity for us. And also you can if you want to support us monetarily, you can go to Duckfeed.tv/tipjar. There's an Amazon referral link there, so it doesn't cost you anything extra. If you're a fan of the show, you haven't taken the plunge on Dark Souls 2 yet, I recommend buying it. Yeah. 7 out of 10, pretty good. And you can use that referral link. It doesn't cost you anything, and we get a chunk of that. Several of you have already done that, and that's really appreciated.
Yes, I will also say thank you everybody who bought Dark Souls 2 through that link, like way back in the past. All of those kind of showed up, and I saw it, and I was like, "Wow! Like we have a bunch of fans who did this," and that goes a long way towards helping us reinvest in the network and helping us kind of do cool stuff. So thank you.
Indeed. What else, Cole?
We do other stuff. If this is your first time listening, if you're on that DS2 hype train, we've got Watch Out for Fireballs, which is think of it like a retro video games book club. We also do Abject Suffering, which is a fantastic humor/video game podcast about bad old games nominally and whatever we want to talk about generally.
Yeah. Indeed. If you want to get kind of up to date on video games news and kind of listen to a roundtable discussion about video games, you can check out The Level, which is Cole's show that he does with some college buddies. That's very good. There's also check out Comrade, which is an indie game show I do with Nick Glauber, where we take 2 indie games every 2 weeks and tell you what's cool about them. Super short, kind of a quick hit.
Yep.
And finally, Those Damn Ross Kids, which is I think the only currently running comedy show around the network, but not for long. At some point, I'll pull something out again.
Yeah.
Yep.
It is a cool place to find stuff to listen to and to read and to watch and all of that. So we would thank you to check those things out.
Oh, yeah. And then just real quick, I don't talk about that often, but I've done a bunch of Dark Souls Let's Plays on YouTube, on youtube.com/Watch Out for Fireballs. I have a capture card now, so I'm going to do Dark Souls 2 and do Demon Souls at some point. So check those out. If you like those, and check out the Dark Souls ones. There's several of them, and they're all kind of gimmicky for the most part. So, some gimmick builds.
Oh, same thing. Also, check out the Kingsfield Let's Die.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun to put together.
First episode, we for the last 7 episodes or so, we did influences on the Dark Souls series, and just wrapped up a series about Kingsfield 4. Yeah. So Cole recorded all of his deaths, and he died a bunch. I thought your vocals were going to be on the recording, and they're not, which makes it kind of more fun and haunting.
That's the way.
Because it gives it more rhythm. So
some of I recorded them separately, and I decided to leave them off because you can see like it's funny because you can see when I'm going to die, and then when I realize I'm going to die.
Yep.
So yeah, and more stuff like that as we inch our toes ever further into doing supplementary video content.
Yeah, indeed.
Not inch. I mean, you've done full playthroughs.
Yeah. But we'll do more.
Yep.
So I think that's probably about it. So until next time, seek greater misery.
Seek misery lest this land swallow you whole.
There we go. Seek misery lest this land swallow you whole. Umbasa.
And we all pray that we will have far more soon